Are we live? Hello? Okay. I'm going to turn myself up a little bit. Let me see if I can hear the music. So pause and then. I cannot. So we'll turn you up a little bit. Then we'll pause. There we go. Okay. Lovely, 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 lovely. Okay, so we mute you. We have this open. We'll have this open as well. Cover the live, so don't get confused at the chat. All right, I think we're good to go. I think we are good to go. Welcome to the live stream. If you're joining us, I think it has been posted in the Discord. I'll check real quick. Don't switch. I didn't even see this, but it doesn't look like it has been posted. So we'll share, copy, open. Add everyone. And then that should work. Okay, so we are good to go. Or as good as you know we want. So yeah, I mean, we are pull everything here. We are ready to go. So I've done a lot of work. I'm gonna turn that down just a little bit. It's a bit loud on my end, which means it's gonna probably turn it up on your end. I've done a lot of work, so I apologize because I actually did all the abstraction into its own blocks already. I have done that already. It wasn't too bad. It was just kind of taking all the stuff that I did for the copier block, anything that could be reused was going into the programming block, and then I can expand on that. Such as adding the adder block, which I have done, and I have done all the function. I think I've done all the functionality. I'm not for sure. I'm not too happy on a couple of things, mostly the UI stuff, but it does work. I can't really deny it not working. So let me get up and running. But yeah, so I have essentially done most of the work and then like what I mean by most of the work is adding new blocks shouldn't be too I did the adder block all today after getting the abstraction done. So I now have it open. So let's open it up. So one of my tests was to make a for loop using just the copier and adder block. It does work. It is very much difficult to use though in that aspect. So I'll explain what we're going to do today. So we have our copier block. I actually gave it a new symbol because I realized, you know, having a C is not going to be the best because it's not going to be able to be seen. So I just have a copy symbol, and then the adding block is pretty much the same thing. So the copier block should be the same. I mean, it's just have a slot, you put your variable in there, you give it a redstone output, it does its thing. Variable has been complete. I just realized I haven't shown you that. So this, I removed byte. I think last time I worked on byte, you put whatever name you want in here. You can give it any type, so integer. You give it a number, which, oop, hold on, I got a phone call. Let me go answer that real quick. All right, just a simple phone call. Anyways, back to what we were doing. But yeah, so it's an integer, it's a number input, which means I can't type letters. I can only type numbers. So 1, and then that saves whenever you close it. I think it's data. I could show that data get entity me, and then inventory. And as you can see there. Besides having all the other blocks, variable name, variable type, and variable value is all there. I guess I can specifically at slot 3 .tag, so that will give you all the MBT data for it. So as you can see, variable name, whatever I typed in, it's an integer, and then it has 1, and then that's just for displaying the how it looks. And everything works. We even have a string editor, which I thought this was going to be the hardest because I didn't know we had multi-line text editors, but we do. But yeah, so what is the mod about? Hello, Thiago. It is about programming. So right now, we don't have many. It's about block programming. Have you ever heard of Scratch or something like that? You probably heard of block programming. This is Minecraft, block programming. It's just placing blocks and doing stuff on that. Right now we only have these 2 blocks because it doesn't really have, I haven't added all the blocks I wanted, but it definitely has room to expand, which adder block is what I have added since the last stream. I wanted to add it for testing purposes, which I'll get into by making a for loop real quick, but it essentially, it takes 2 inputs that you can both lock or whatever, and then it also has a setting to where it can either run off a redstone pulse or run as soon as it has 2 inputs. So that's just this checkbox. I'm not too happy about this UI. Maybe a side menu would be useful here, but this is all the settings I have right now, so I don't think I need it. When I get more settings, I will probably add a side menu. But also I've added the ability to have multiple inputs because this has 2 slots. We need multiple inputs, so this is denoted by the number in the bottom right, and if you hold shift while cycling the inputs, it will go through and go through as many as it has. So the copier only has 1 input, as you can see here, so it doesn't even cycle when we shift. It just goes around and around. Maybe not the best feature, but whatever. So yeah, so just to show you that this is kind of all you really need right now, we can make a for loop that adds all the digits through 1 through 10. So if we do that, so we need a block that holds our state. So for loop 1 through 10, we need to initialize our I to 1. So as you can see, that's how it does it. I'm actually going to put this up a block because I actually know how this goes. We put our variable in there. We don't lock it because we want to overwrite this with the next value. And this is where it kind of gets weird, and this is why I want to add a counter. We actually need to output twice. So we define this side as an output, which is this orange side here. Let me grab a hopper. And then the reason why I wanted to, have this type of system is because I want it to use vanilla transfer systems. I don't want to have to add a pipe or something like that. I want it to use vanilla stuff. So technically this doesn't, this is just kind of a self loop. But I want it, so to output twice, we got to do something. We got to do something like this, to where one goes into our adding, and then one goes into, well, the other adding, but adds all the sum together. So to do that, we need to first copy it into this one, and then I'll go in there and then copy it into this one. So to do that, what I did is I used a repeater, if I can, or a observer, and then I'll use a repeater for the other one. But what this does when you press it is it sends 2 pulses to the copier, but if you press it now, you see that 2 of the instances get put into the bottom hopper. So we have to lock this hopper so that only one goes in there. So how I found to do that is by placing a torch and putting some redstone dust here that gets activated. So we activate it, it unlocks it, and then it locks it back after. Another thing that could, the only thing I don't really like about this is that this can take, or this can output hard reds, like this has redstone signals itself. It's kind of like how, let me pull out a repeater. So, it's kind of like how if you power this block, it's a hard power, so it powers anything beside it. These blocks have that same problem. It's like if I don't want that, but I don't know how to fix that, because I could do it to where I just prevent it from outputting. There are sometimes I do want to output, like a clock block, which outputs a redstone signal dependent on the output. They'll have no inputs, which is something I don't think I've accounted for yet. But yeah, so I definitely need to fix that, because then that'll lead to some issues I know going down the road. But yeah, so, but as you can see, it has a hopper going, or it has a hopper from here going into here, which can be, actually it's locked right now. But when we press the button again, it will actually unlock it and let it go in here, which won't be locked. And then we can obviously put this in our adder block. And the good news, a good reason to add these two is because you could just say, okay, I want this to be a 1 always, so 1 constant, and we just set this 1. And we just put that in there, and then we lock it. So that way it doesn't get removed at all, never. And then if we do this, that means as soon as it reaches an input here, and we actually define the inputs and outputs, that's an input, and that's an output. As soon as we define an output and it can go into something, which could be something like this, where we can just do that, then all would do is just immediately output and put it into here. One thing I'm not too happy about though is it does it instantly. There's no delay to it, which I don't want to add a setting for delay. I just, you know, we have to build around that. So what would be the problem is the only problem I would see with this, let me get rid of, is we need to find a way to, like, not really zero tick it, but like have a short delay. So I guess like a lever maybe. But then I don't know. It's kind of difficult. Oh, this is not working. That's an output. as an output here. This is not working. Oh, it is working. So we already have 5. Oops. Start that at 1. Name it I. Save and close. Put that back in there. So I guess it is adding. It's just doing it so fast that I'm not seeing it. But it's also not outputting anything. Let me get rid of this observer. It needs to have like a shorter button, if that makes sense. Like a button that goes, have a shorter delay, but I don't know. So if we press that, I don't know where it went. It's obviously added, because 3, oh, that's adding twice. Oh. Well, as you can see, I'm already struggling just to do this. I don't think that I should struggle as much to do a simple it counts up. So we are going to combine all this logic, not really combine all this logic, but we're going to make a block that does it for us. And we can do that because we're developing the mod, and I choose to have a counter block. So let's go into our planning. So I'll close this out. So we have counter block adds a defined amount each power, or each time it is powered, and outputs it. It's pretty simple. Actually, this isn't on a new line. This is on its same line. And then we'll just have a slider in the screen to define, or no, not a number input to define what we need to add each time. Because I know there's some times where we want to do -1 or 2 or something like that, because we could be using this to do an array, because we do have an array type in this program. I'm really just bright. Let's see if I can. Ooh. See if I can just turn that down a little bit. I don't want to be like super blown out. Yeah, that should be good. Kind of shadowy over here, but it's whatever. But yeah, so we need to do that, and I think it's a good time to actually take you through how we do that in the code base, because the abstraction it's kind of all over the place. But that's because block entity registration is all over the place. There's probably better ways of doing it, like having decorators or something, but I'm just going to deal with it right now, considering the low amount of blocks we have. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is add our block. So we'll go in here and we'll just add another folder. We're going to call this counter, and we're going to have a counter block. So this counter block is a class, and it's going to extend programming block. And then in here we add our methods. And in fact, I did this for the items, but I haven't done it for the blocks. In the mod blocks, I'll probably just have this in the block itself. So programming blocks, it's gonna have no super. So what that means, so like it's just gonna have that already, but then it's also, what the heck, there's nothing there. So this type of copper block does not define copper block. Oh, do I actually need it? See, that's the thing, is like, I guess I'll do that. Because the codec needs it. Okay, so that's something. The items don't have a codec, so I guess I won't worry about that. Well, if that's the case, I could just do both. Because this, and I could do a protected. Like this one's only called by the inside the block, and this one is called. So we can do something like this. So that's copier block, and then we go over to operations adder block, and we do the same thing, except it's called adder block. And then, yeah, it should get rid of another import, which doesn't really help in the grand scheme of things, but it's cool. You know, less code is cool, I guess. But yeah, with that, we can just copy that same thing. In fact, we can copy pretty much all of this. It's going to be pretty similar. And we create, anytime we see adder block, we replace it with counter block. It's going to yell at us for this. It's not this. Yeah. So these are the only two things we're going to need to change because we need to add the class that handles it. So counter block, and here we need to make a counter block entity. And this is going to extend a programming block entity. And that's where all that type of stuff is going to be made. So now that we have our classes, all we got to do now is register them. So we have our adder block, so we're going to have a counter block, and then counter block item. It's going to be a new counter block, and then this is going to register here, and then we're going to import counter block. And then have it be a counter block, and then we need to build the entity. See, this is what I'm saying is like we could probably have a decorator that says programming block entity, and it just does all this automatically, because this is something that we don't technically have to do manually. It's just because that's our system right now. But we can have a decorator which then registers whenever it registers the class, or whenever it creates the classes. But that's for another day. Right now I'm just trying to show off how we can use the abstracted stuff to do all this. So we have counter block. Another thing is I'm just going to make sure that we're not messing up anywhere, because I don't want to have to bug fix this type of stuff, because any miscopy and paste is going to be a problem. And then we register this. It's going to be a counter block entity, adder block entity, and then this is going to be a counter block define storage, and then this is going to be our counter block item, or not counter block item, counter block entity. What is he yelling? Type counter block does not. Oh, sorry. Entity. Yeah, we'll import. And do that. And so yeah. So now we have all the blocks registered. So we can now, instead of type, we say mod blocks dot counter block item, or counter block entity, and we get rid of all that. Right now, I'm not going to have a menu. It's just going to return a 0. Inventory size is going to be a 1, or how I like to do it, because there's a couple places that use it, is define a static int, and then we just return it here. And then texture, which we haven't added yet, but it's going to be return new identifier programming blocks dot mod ID, and then it's going to be, forgot exactly the verbiage. Okay, textures block textures / block / block counter .png, and this is for when we render the block entity. This is what we need it for. So yeah, I also hate that it doesn't know what where is it? These arguments are called, so I'll just add it myself. There we go. And then this was a young, oh, because it doesn't have an adder block, which, correct. Mod blocks dot counter block entity, and then this needs to be counter block entity dot tick, which we don't have yet, but we'll add it. And then it returns to counter block. And so here we define a tick, which it's just this signature. Put it up here. So now it does have a tick. And so I think counter block's done. I don't think we need anything for this anymore. We're definitely not done with the entity. But yeah, so our next thing we're gonna do is we're going to add all the block stuff. It's just as simple as copying the other stuff. So this is counter block, and this is gonna copy or take the counter block model whenever, mostly because we're not rendering the model ever, the actual model, rendering our own stuff. We'll add our block. So we'll have counter block, and then in our models block, we'll add a counter block, counter block, and this is going to take it from the block counter texture. And then in model item, we just say it is the parent. So counter copier block, or not copier block, counter block, and this takes from the counter block model. So yeah, so that is it for that. So the last thing we need to do is we need to add a texture. So let me, wrong thing. Make sure I don't anything up on this side. Okay, so I'm gonna close all this out for now. Don't save. File, new. Actually, no, it's gonna be file, open, textures, block, and it's gonna be the block base. So the reason I have this block base, I'm gonna turn off the grid now, is because I want, anytime I want to add a new block, I'll just add a new layer, make it semi-transparent, and then put it on top of this. So we grab the layer window. Oh, hey, it actually attaches. So add a new layer, and we're gonna make this pure black. So turn on the color, black. Does that attach? Okay, it does attach. And then the counter. So counter, the most simple thing I could think of is just +1 or something like that. Problem is it's not the most centered. So what we can do, I think this is actually centered, right? 5, 6, it is not. So we can make this bigger. Movement tools. I'll move you out of the way and then we'll make this a 2. Oh, that's a terrible plus. So, well, we could do something like, but then it won't be centered. Okay, well, this is just gonna have to suck. But then we can center this. And then we can do something like that. So that's the most optimal place for this plus, or this 1. This plus is really going to be bad, or it's really going to give me some problems. See, like here's 5, but then it has the same problem where it's not centered anywhere. So let me see, does this look more natural? Okay, it looks a bit more natural. And then we'll move this 1 over here. It's good enough for now. It denotes what it's gonna do. So what I do to make it like official, get rid of, or you're gonna move over here, is it turn down the opacity till it matches the border color, and then that matches with the noise, and then we just combine the layers together. So we save this as the counter, so this will be block counter. That should be all we need for this. And so if we go here, turn off, and go to block, we should see block counter, which we do. And then you can also see where the texture is from the 0. And I have it 0. There's 5 inputs because realistically, that's the maximum inputs you can really have, because it doesn't really make sense to have more than 6. But then if you have 6 inputs, there's no output, and so it's kind of a useless block. So 5 is the maximum I will allow. I highly doubt, I can't think of a block that will take 5 inputs. I think the most is maybe 3, but it could be for like something like a grid representation, maybe take a lot of that. But at that point, hopefully you're not trying to automate, like make a grid using hoppers. You're just putting something in a grid or putting something in a block entity yourself. I don't know though. Flexibility is really cool and all. One thing we also need to do, I just realized, is we need to add the built-in tick method. So world, and then this is this method essentially tells, like, as soon as the conditions are met to where it needs to output, this is the function that either outputs it and returns true if it did output something, or return false if it didn't. I'm going to pull up the copier block as an example because it's pretty simple. So it gets whatever's in the only slot, the first slot though. If it's valid, as in it's a variable, it has MPT data, it's not just a brand new variable, then it'll try to insert it into the outputs that it has. So we can do something like this. It's going to be slightly different because instead of outputting just what the slot is, it needs to add 1 to the counter and then output it. But then we need to do error checking because I don't think we'll use the counter for strings. I don't think there's a need for a string counter. The only one that I really see it needing is an integer, because if it's a float, it's kind of bad, because you're going to be comparing floats, which is a bad thing already. So yeah. So we'll do this for now because we need some sort of thing. And I think it's actually going to be using, it could just use the copier screen, honestly, or it could be based off the copier screen, because it's a 1 slot. So yeah, so we have get comparator output, which I'm also probably actually going to take from this. So actually, I could, if I really wanted to, not the operation screen, but the counter screen, I could just steal all that code, and that should work. Technically, I mean, in the sense of it's literally just a copier or counter block. But if we run it, it should be added and it should function. It functions exactly like the copier block, but it should function. And I mean, considering the amount of code that I had to do for the copier block to just even get it running, I mean, that's nothing compared to it. So I think it's a total win in my book. So it makes, like I said, it makes adding blocks and their functionality quite fast. Especially since all we need to do for the tick method is when we get that redstone signal to power it, add 1 and then output it first. So it's kind of the same. So yeah, so let's just one thing I really do want to add is one thing I forgot to do in mod items is add it to the creative tab. So mod blocks dot counter block item. That way I just don't have to, I mean, I could have just done a give command, but that was, you know, I have to do this anyway, so. But yeah, I mean, that's really like all the catch-up I've been doing, or the catch-up that you need. I've learned how to do the GUI programming much easier. I remember, or with the variable stuff, I remember struggling with that a lot. But I don't think I struggle with that as much anymore. I mean, that's just what learning is. You're learning to not suck. I think that's that's the point. You just got to do it. So that's, you know, I have 3 different screens. So yeah. So now if we look at yeah, we have our counter block. Yeah, we look. Ooh, it has crashed. Why has it crashed? Ticking block. Counter block cannot be casted to an adder block. Why? Something. Wait. So, where was this at? This was at. Okay. Well, class counter block cannot be cast to an adder block, which is correct, but it doesn't really make sense. Why? Where's that happen? Okay, well, this is not helpful for me. Where is that happening? Okay, I know the counter block's being. Okay, so something somewhere is wait, no, wrong one. It's this one. Counter block entity. Wrong, just the wrong block entity. So as I've been saying, it should get rid of anything to do with, well, besides the copy your screen, because we're going to be doing something similar to that. It failed. Oh, counter block. Huh? Counter type tick is not applicable. Why would it be applicable to this? It doesn't need to be applicable to that. Why is it trying to be an adder? So T extends block entity. The tick is not applicable for the argument's adder block. So BE is for some reason an adder block. I don't want it to be an adder block. Why is it doing that? What about, wait, so copier block entity, copier block. Let me just, where's copier block? Open that up, counter block, open that up. So we look here. What? I'm trying to see the difference. So here's copier block. Here's counter block. There's, I mean, what? Why is this trying to be a... Wait, counter block entity means something is wrong with the blocks. So I did do something wrong. Ah, there you are. Counter block entity. So there was a mistype here. I even said, I was like, it's going to be kind of weird to debug it because it's not going to be straightforward. All right, and then yeah, there's no error here anymore. All right. So like I said, we're done with counter block. Shouldn't need any of this anymore. Let that all load. So the only thing that would be different for this screen is it would have an input saying what we should count, or what the step should be, essentially. Counting step or whatever you want to call it. That should just be off to the right. Which is gonna, like I said, we're gonna have to create a new screen for that, no matter what. But the copier screen should be pretty similar to it. So now, if we look here, and we get, counter block does not exist. I know why. One thing I also forgot to do is add a renderer to it. And the good news is that the renderer is the easiest part. We just say, okay, we have a counter block entity. And this is going to be instead of adder, counter. Just copy and paste this anywhere. And then we import counter block entity, get rid of adder block. And then, yeah, that's it. That's it for the class. And then to actually register it, we just do a block entity render factories, counter block entity, counter block entity renderer. That's it. So now it actually renders. And then, probably should. That is, if I showed it off last time, it's literally just the same thing, except now instead of, the inputs are hard-coded, but instead of the texture being hard-coded, it comes from the block entity, which is where the, if we look here, that's where this get texture is used. That's that renderer. So now we can render it, and it should function like any other block. It actually should function exactly like a copier block, because I just kind of copied it straight from there. So now if we look at this, there we go. And then we have our +1. It's kind of bad because, like I said, text is going to be, it's going to be kind of hard to see that, but it doesn't really matter. We have our counter block. Like I said, it behaves exactly like a copier. So if we want to, we can show that off. So we just say hello, and we put that in. One thing that also bugs me is that the shifting doesn't really work that well, because you can't shift into here. You have to shift it into here. And then we need a wrench and a chest. So that is a chest. So that would be our output. We give it a redstone signal. As you can see, it just copies it. That's exactly what we assumed would happen, because we just took its implementation. So the next thing we need to do is we need to add our input, our number input here, and that will be the counter step. And we can do it quite simply with, let me think. Yeah, counter step, we just do an input. I don't really know how we would size it automatically, but we could. But the next thing we need to do is we just need to make a new screen. So I'm actually going to close all this out, because we're good with the block, because we're done copying the functionality. Now we need to add the screen over. So this is going to be a counter screen handler. It's going to extend the programming block screen handler. It's going to have a pretty similar layout. In fact, we don't even need that. If I look at the copier screen, see, this is a pretty simple screen handler. So I'm actually just going to copy and paste it. And since the slot's even in the same spot, I mean, should be pretty simple. Another thing we do need to do though is we need to add the screen handler, or register screen handler. So we have the operation, we place a counter, and then this needs to be this. And then we need to register it. It's going to be a counter. It's going to be the counter screen handler. So there we go. So now we can, instead of that, use our counter screen handler and then add our slot. We don't really it's kind of already built in for us. But then this is where we also need to get the count step. So this is where we add the count step, and so this one just comes from the buffer dot read int, and then we need to store that. So private int count step, and this is just going to be stored in here. This dot count step, and then we're actually going to take it from the on button click, because that allows for the easiest porting, I guess, because it already has, this already needed some custom data. So we need get count step. This just returns the count step, and then on button click's kind of funky because it was supposed to run when you click a button, but it could be ran anytime. Since you can actually give the ID special encoding to where it's not just the ID based off like what button you're clicking. It's like the ID actually has the information itself. So like in the tens digit, or well, I put it in any tens and above, because the first digit's dedicated to the slot if it has any, but this doesn't have any, so we're just using the tens and above. We need to add a new ID to it. So the first one was the lock button, the second one was the run instantly. So this one is just going to be the count step, and that's going to be 2. Yeah, so if the action is the count step, then we get whatever the block entity is. If it's an instance of the counter block entity, then we just say entity dots. Ooh, we haven't added the count step to here yet, which we could just private int count step, and the default value is 1, because that's why you would. I mean, that's the whole point, is to replace all that logic to just count by 1. So yeah, count step. We need a getter and a setter for that. So that would be, I'm gonna put it here. Public int get count step, return this dot count step, and then we need a public void set count step, return, or this dot count step is equal to step, which we need in here. So yeah, so we have get count step and set count set, or step, and then we also need to override some variables, because if I go into operation block entity, as you can see, we have custom data we need to save now. And so this comes from the read and write MBT. This is just how Minecraft stores data. So instead of run instantly, it's going to be count step, and it's going to be a integer, put int this dot count step, and then read is this dot count step is equal to get into integer count step. So that saves our count step, and then we need one more overwrite to write the integer. So this will write integer, and then this is going to be this dot count step. And so this is the method that actually sends all the data to our screen so we can display it and use it. So I think that's it for the count. I mean, besides, ooh, I just realized this is in the wrong class. This is the copier. Ooh. Let me fix that. Ooh. This is also part of that, so oops. Just go here. So yeah, it has a couple things now that we don't need anymore because, well, we're not saving it. Let me just make sure. Okay, we did clean it up. So yeah, so now this has the count step. If we really want, we can actually add the functionality real quick. So this gets the stack if it's valid. So if it's valid, or if it's not valid, or variable. I have a couple helper. Get variable type is not equal to integer. I'm just going to say it has to be an integer. If it's not integer, it's just not even going to run. So variable type integer, then it will return false. So if we make it to this point, that means we can make a new stack. So we have int result is equal to stack or variable item dot get value as integer plus our count step, or block entity dot get count step, because this is a static method, so we have to deal with that. And then we have a result, so item stack result, and I also have a helper thing that helps us create the variable. So it's going to be the same name. So it's going to be variable item dot get variable name, which is the stack. The type is going to always be an integer. So variable type integer, and then the value is going to be the result as a string. So result. Oop, gelling. Int in the type integer is not applicable for new count. And then we just try to insert result. So that should work without, I was about to say, without any screen modification. Well, we can't, it actually doesn't work just yet because we actually have to add it. We have an issue. So, because we're actually trying to send data, we're not just sending a signal. We can't use this. So we can't actually use this. So it means we can actually get rid of. If I go back to this one. We can't use it. We have to use networking, which luckily we've done before. Packet, so we need to save count step client to server packet.java. And it's going to have the same exact form as this, except it's not going to be the exact same. So one thing we need, the thing is we need the position. So this will be the position is equal to buffer.read block pause. Import. And then we also need the new count step. So new step is that, and that's going to be integer. Yeah, and then so for that, all we would do is we try to get the block entity. So block entity is equal to, or I'll call this block entity block. Thank you. Is equal to world, or sorry, player dot get world dot get block entity position. And then if block entity is an instance of the counter block, which it should be because this would not be executed without it, then counter block entity set count step to new step. And that should be it. So I'll get rid of all that. So that is all we need for this. Now we need to register it. So this one's gonna be up here. We save the count step and then count step. And then we just add another one of these, save count step client to server packet. So there we go. So now we have another packet. We can now work on getting this. So this still holds because we still need the handler to pass it to the screen. We just need the screen to send it through a packet rather than the on button click. Sadly, I mean, technically I could send very basic data through the ID. That would just be much more of a headache than it really needs to be. So I'm just going to do it the intended way of sending a packet. So I don't think we actually need anything here because we registered it. So the only thing I think we need now is our screen. So new file, counter screen, and then when you register it, well, we need to add data to it. So extends. I didn't make a programming blocks screen because the screens are going to be slightly different, so it's going to be, I can't have all that counter screen. So then we add all the methods and then the drop background, which it's going to be this. Probably should rename it, but so if we do that, in fact, we could just copy all of this. This is all nice. It's going to be pretty similar. It's just not. Boom. And it's going to be the counter screen handler, and it has nothing to do with copier. So yeah, and so if we look here, this should be the same exact thing. Another thing I actually implemented, this is in the operation, is I have this, which this could be part of the, like a master or main class, but So then this one, all we have to do is just do get button tooltip. Actually, yeah. This dot lock button dot is locked, and then we just need to do the same thing but for up here. So that should work, and then we have on press, which works there for the lock, and then it renders it, renders that. So technically, like I said, this should work. I didn't register it. Cancel. Forgot to register the screen, since this is a dot counter screen handler, and it registers it to counter screen, not operation screen. Counter screen. Oh, because it's still there. So there we go. So now, if we run this, it should work because we did register it. We don't need you. We need you. So the only thing that we need to do now is add in our text box that allows us to control the count step. But if we don't have that, it defaults to 1, which we can confirm if like our block is working without it. So yeah. But then, as you can see, this is like we've only been here an hour, and I've already added a new block with all the stuff that we need. And I mean, we can just keep doing that for the rest. I mean, I don't think there's any blocks that will have that super complicated of a behavior. But so yeah, so we have test. I forgot what we set it to. Oh, we set it to hello. So yeah, we can't do that anymore. So we're just gonna say we're gonna call this I. It's been set to 0, and then we put that back in there. Locking the slot doesn't really. Well, actually it does, because it actually. So if we lock it, that means that there's no inputs can replace it, which that's intentional. We didn't, So I guess locking this would be just good practice, because I mean technically, if we have no inputs, it's already locked. So yeah, what would happen is, it would not work because we haven't replaced this one. We were just going to be outputting 1+. We still test it. I mean, so now I have our I. It's still 0. That didn't work. Ooh, I wonder why. Is this 0 as well? I mean, that's the intended behavior. Yeah. So they're both 0. So they're both the same exact copy. So I'll put you back. So it doesn't work. But a funny thing, I mean, we have our own screen, and it is sort of the same as the copier, but we haven't gotten there yet. So let's get this behavior fixed before we add close that out. Let's get this behavior fixed before we do anything. So let's just see programming blocks.logger.info format. And then this is going to be %d, and then variable item get value as integer, stack, and then block entity.get count step. So this should give us, this should work. It did output something, so it's not like it's crazy to, we got to this part, it just didn't output the correct thing. One thing it may happen is it's still technically, like, it may not actually be registered to the right block entity, which I don't know why it wouldn't, because I thought I made sure. We can test that by just checking the block data to see what block entity is located at the block. But I don't think that's the case. I'm just thinking maybe something didn't get set right. So, or I realized that that's been here, so we might have to actually make a new one because we placed that block before we even added the count step. Okay, yeah, 0 and 1. So if we look at this, it is 1. Okay, but like I said, the dumb thing we didn't do is we didn't replace it, which I could have just replaced it there. But so yeah. It's just because it was an old block and it didn't have a get count step. So what we need is not only do we need to output that, but we need to set that to the result. So if we do that, so actually that's it. That was the fixes to replace the slot. So I'm not going to test that just yet. So I'm actually going to add the number input. So if we go to our counter screen, I'm actually going to open up our GUI just so we can do some testing. So all my inputs have been like 20. So 20 is this height. These are 18. So the good news is to center it based off the slot. We just need to move it up 1. So private static final int number input x, which is equal to some number, I don't know what. And then the y is going to be 1 pixel above it because it's 20 high and all the slots are 18 high, so it needs to be 1 block above or 1 pixel above to center it. But I don't know what I want for the x, so I could base it off this and then go 4. So 4 slots is I think 18 times 4. So which is okay, so 72. So the width is going to be 72. So number input width is 72, and the height number input. And the only reason I'm doing this is just so it's not okay. It is technically magic numbers because I mean you're just kind of putting random numbers in there, but that's kind of most of the that's most of the Minecraft GUI programming is just putting random numbers in there. So, yeah, so that's all of our number input, and I actually made a number input widget. It's the same as a text field, except that it just restricts what type of characters you can press. So it allows for floats and inputs or integers to be inputted. So when we initialize, we actually need to make a private number input widget count step input, and then this dot count step input is equal to new number widget, which needs our text renderer. So this dot text renderer, and this is the x. So number x, number input y, number input width, number input height, and then this is going to be true because we're only dealing with integers. And then we shall set the text, so count step input dot text set text is equal to this dot handler dot get count step. So that just puts whatever it is, integer dot to string this dot count step. And then the next thing we need is a on change. So this dot count step dot on or set changed listener, and then it's going to be a consumer for a string. So it's just going to be our text, and then it's going to be a lambda function. And so whatever we set the change to, we need to make a new buffer. So packet byte buffer is equal to packet byte buffer buffs dot create buffer dot. We have to send the block position, which I think we have that automatically, or the handler has that automatically. Or put, is it put or write? It's right. Block position, which is this dot handler dot get position. As like I think we have that already. That's one of the base things that programming block handler does, and then we need to write an int, which is going to be integer dot parse int or text. Well, technically I could have added a method to grab it as its number, but this does the same thing. And then we need to send it. So I forgot how to send it exactly, so I'm just going to steal it from here. So we do our save and close. Here we go. It's this specific line, and this is going to be save count step. and then we send the buffer. If we, I think this is all right. This could be just all right. So if that's, if, I mean, oh wait, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. No, it is not. We forgot to actually add it. This dot count step input. Now it should be good. I was about to say, and since we had it as a drawable child, we don't have to worry about any of the other methods. So yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Another thing I learned is we actually don't even need these left and top. We could just use this dot x and this dot y, because that defines it as the middle of the of a normal GUI screen. So if I want to, I can definitely do that. I probably will do that. I'll do it after this gets tested. So we move that over here. Single player, new world. And so what this should be the complete block. I'm assuming. There's a lack of input. I think one thing is it's not put in the right place. So it's not this. This dot x plus that. This dot y plus that. And actually, I'm just gonna get rid of this. And then anywhere that has errors, this dot y. That should be it. Maybe because it was rendering the background and then the widgets, but that doesn't make sense actually, because it always renders the widgets in front of the background, because that's what this does. This dot render and then this dot, yeah. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. I don't think this would fix it. I just don't know why it would not be there. I mean, another thing I could check is, I mean, this variable edit has the same type of widget. Oh, well, I probably need to. So that may be something I need. This dot count step input. I also need. I don't really need placeholder. I need a tooltip. So this dot count step dot set tooltip equal to text dot translatable, and this is gonna be, if I move my mic's in the way, add a tooltip here, tooltip, and then enter, or I'll do count step, enter count step. So then there we go. So tooltip, oh, and then we need to do tooltip of this. So that should work now. So yeah. One thing that may not be optimal is, because it's sending a packet every time you press a key, this is a way to make a lag bomb, because you could just have a key script back and forth on 0 and backspace, and it sends like hundreds of packets per second. But just don't do that. Let me just check which one is this. This is the one. So I want to put this one in there. I just realized it's not there, but we can just confirm that it works. So this should be 1, and then this should also be 1, which it is. So if we put this back in here, this should be 2, which it is. So the functionality works. I don't know where this number input is. I don't know where it is, which is weird. So yeah, this to add drawable child adds it. Is it using the right one? Hold on. This is counter block entity. Found the problem. Counter screen handler, and then we need to add this dot count step. Problem. Okay. Yeah, that probably there's a counter. Okay. That was the issue. I never added it. I never had the right screen handler to begin with. Now it should work. Yeah. The good thing that happened with the abstracting is now I don't have to really deal with the inventory management of it, besides what the input and output would be. But most of that's already covered for me. Now I just need to check if it's valid, which I have methods to do. Before, with the copier block, it was hell trying to get that to work. It was very hard. But now there we go. It's not centered. But it definitely works. Oh, it broke. What broke? Key press. Okay, well I know for input string nada. Yeah. So we need to check that actually. So here I just kind of did it. So if text is not empty, then we send the packet. And the good news is because we restricted, well actually one thing that could break, let me try, let's do a try catch. What is this number format exception? I just don't do. So that should work. Maybe it will work. Another thing that may break is if I try to copy and paste a text into there, then it might go around the limitation of it only allowing numbers in decimal places. I'll test that. I think it's an easy fix. We'll just, whenever we copy or paste, or whenever we paste something into a number input, we test if it's a number or a float. If it's not either, then we just don't paste it. I'm not for sure. Maybe they already have that handled, but yeah. Like I said, it obviously doesn't work. But like, say I try to copy and paste lock button in there. Yes, definitely not the case. So, but if we do 12, 12 should be the count step. Close it out. Data get block at here. Where is the count step? Oop. I don't see count step. Oh, there it is. Okay, it is 12. So yeah, and so if we press the button, I forgot what it was before, but it should go by 12, which it does. Okay, so that works. I mean, we have a functional counter block. So if we really want to, we can I'm not going to let it output anything. We can hook a clock to this, which another block I want to make, which I'll probably make off screen, is the clock block. So I don't have to keep, I can specifically also make a block and then output it to go to specific areas instead of just going everywhere. Makes it very easy. So then we have a redstone torch. I guess we don't need that. Oop. We just need a redstone torch, and then so then now it'll just keep adding and adding and adding and adding. You know, it does its thing. I don't know how many, and then boom. And so we'll turn that off, and then I look at the variable 221. I'm not for sure that's right. Let me check something. I think that's too much. So let's output to something. And so what I did here is now I can check the steps between them. This is 222, 223, and this should be around like 250 something, 248. So it is right. I didn't know I didn't really let it go for that long. Damn. Anyways, but yeah, I mean it works, and so let's do our test now, shall we? So where is my? Oh, it's over here. So our test is to add 1 through 10. So 1 plus, I think 1 plus. 1 plus, I'm going to confirm that is the right math because some of my testing has produced different results, and I just assumed it being my circuit wrong, but I think that's right. Is it 55? It is 55, so that's what I thought. Yeah. So, yeah, we need to go in here. We need our counter block. So counter block, wrench, that's our wrench. So we have our counter block. Good news. Well, we still need the. Well, actually, no. We only need 1 because we don't need the adding loop. So I'll just use a button for now. I need a variable to hold our I, which is initially at 1. Save and close. And it has a count step of 1, and then we need it to output to a hopper. Technically, there is you could go straight to another block, or not a copier, an adder. If I can find, adder. You could technically go straight to, we'll do it instantly, the block, but it's really hard. Like you have to go out here, change this, and then grab the MBT data, so that way anytime you place a block, it's always the right MBT. So yeah, but we're just gonna do this also so I can see it. So then when we press this, it should go up. Actually, I think this immediately increments. Yeah, so we need to start this at 0. Back. Boom. And so we add that, it'll go to here, which will then, and then we also need to have a sum, which starts at 0. Perfect. So close, and it goes in here. It doesn't lock, but what would happen is this would output, and this would be put into this slot. So it'd be, and then see, with a clock, another thing I want for the clock is to add specific things. which like we could do 10 pulses at this delay. But yeah. So we press this button, we should get 1, which is correct. Another thing that we could have is a printer block, so I don't have to keep looking at, looking at the variable. It just prints it. So what it would do is just, when we output it to a print, and then as soon as it prints, as soon as a block comes in, it prints it and it extracts, or it sends it out. Simple block. We just added a counter block. It's easier than that because we don't even have any state to manage. We just take whatever variable and output it out for debugging, obviously. So we press this, we should get 3, which we do. So we've pressed it twice. So 3, 4. In fact, let me add a comparator so I can maximize this. 5. Yeah. And 5 should be 15, which it is. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then if we look at the output of this, it should be 55. Hey now, you're an all-star. So, that's that's as good as it's gonna get. Until we add like conditionals to where we could run this technically infinitely, where we check this, like this should be 10 right now, right? Yeah, 10. So what we do is we would press this, it would go into the conditional, disconnected. We good? We good? Let me check we're live. Okay. Weird. Said I was disconnected. Anyways, but this is as good as we're gonna get for now for the for loop. I think off camera I'm going to add the printing block and the clock block, and then that should be, but I also have to add all the rest of the operations, so subtraction, multiplication, and division. Oh, I want to show you how I did that. It's kind of a neat trick that I did. I didn't, like I said this last time, I didn't know Java lambdas until recently. And the reason I didn't really care about it is because I thought you couldn't do stuff like put in a function somewhere. Turns out you can. I just was dumb. So if I go to the operation, the adder block entity, kind of looks crazy. But what I did is, how it works is the 2 items that you try to put into the adder, it'll test what the integer float, or the types is. So if you're adding an integer to an integer, it returns an integer. Or the integer to a float, it returns a float. Integer to a string, it returns a string. And so it has, essentially it kind of adds like all the language rules that you would normally have. I put that into I think it's like 2 maps. So then when we run it, it will run the function that I put in, which I didn't know you could do. So, yeah. And so what I would do for subtraction is, integer minus integer, float minus float, Boolean minus Boolean. It's 1 minus 0, 1. It's 1. I just turn them into the numbers, and then anything string related minus wise, it's just not gonna get. It's just gonna return empty. It's just not gonna be possible. Technically, I could do so. I could add some fooling around to where if you subtract a number, like you have a string hello and you subtract 3 from it, it concatenates it to just heh, because it removes the LLO. or the other way around, but I feel like that's way too, that can lead to undefined behavior, and that's kind of poopy. Like with booleans, if you're doing any mathematical operation with booleans, they turn into 1 or 0. That seems pretty easy. With strings, the string takes precedence, and then anytime you're dealing with floats takes precedence. Yeah, but this is gonna be pretty easy because operation block has literally all the stuff I need. It's just now I'll just add the adder and then all the stuff, all the rules for it. But other than that, it's just straightforward to go from here. I think the next stream, I'll probably work on grid representation, because that's something that I do want. Either that, or I'll add a math function block. Not like it's kind of like adding or subtracting, but it's like cosine, sine, absolute values, stuff like that. Or I can add error detecting, so if a block detects an error, it'll turn red and then it'll have an error message, or you can have a tool that gives you an error message. But whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff we can do. Like I said, I'm still gonna work offline because streaming's not. I think I have 0 viewers as we speak. I have 0 viewers, so I'm just gonna work offline. I'm not gonna make this a stream project. Anyways, thank you guys. If you're watching this afterward, there's no one here to say goodbye to.